The study sessions are advertised at the beginning of the year. They're what? They say they're study sessions. I don't know. I could show the ad. Okay. I'll put you on my list.
Good evening, Council. You do not need your headphones tonight, so that's awesome news, right? The other thing is the microphones that are in front of you. If the green button is on, you're live. If the green button is off, you're not. You can control your own audio.
I am live, huh? All right. We've brought the caucus out here because of the number of people that were in the caucus room. So I think without further ado, Mr. Z, where's Pete? You want to talk to us?
I'm gonna be like a person that hands these out. Ralph is the president of a 501c3
Okay.
card, and then I can fill in blanks too.
Okay.
We have a handout for everybody, so we got one.
Super.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, so while Pete's handing that out, good evening, council. Thank you for letting us come in and explain what we've been working hard over the past couple months. I've met a couple of you before, but for those that don't know me, my name's Ralph Pignataro. I work most of my time, except for the last couple months, as the general counsel at Logistics Plus, and we've been fortunate enough to get a whole group of business owners, and this whole idea, just so we know where this started, was really a couple years ago when Andy Cicini, Jim Berlin, and Pete, and people just seen some of the activity in Griswold Park, and how can we improve the park, improve the neighborhood, and sort of where we got today. And one of the things I want to address right from the get-go is I think there's been a lot of, and partly our fault, admittedly, but there's been a lot of misreporting and miscommunication on this project. So part of tonight is just to sort of update you guys, set the record straight. I think probably the most important one, and I'm not sure where it came from. I think it might have been a news media, might have come from there, is as part of the project we're doing, there's no plan to rename anything. There has never been a plan to rename the park. There's never been a plan to rename a fountain. The name of our nonprofit corporation, which is duly formed in PA, is Erie's Station Square Ltd. We chose that name, frankly, because we couldn't think of anything better. We have station, there's a square. We didn't want to just call it Griswold Park because, what we said is, there's a hypothetical sort of neighborhood district that we want to help improve, not just Griswold Park. So, the long-term plan is to improve and better an entire district that our board has worked to sort of hypothetically establish for now. That may change or grow. And sort of the first phase of that was some improvements to specifically Griswold Park and some surrounding areas. And how we got there was actually through conversations, support, and guidance from Kim Thomas from the state and Tina Mangine from the Redevelopment Authority. They said, you should really look into this, the NAP program through PA, and think about applying for the state tax credits for your project. So over the past couple months, we've worked really, really hard, got a lot of things accomplished in a quick amount of time to do that. And we did get our NAP application in. And so part of what's in your packet here that Pete printed out, I think, the first sheet just sort of goes through who we are, what's the plan, basically everything I just said, who's on the board, a little bit of the boundary of the district, and then, I don't know, page 4 or 5, there's a master plan that Weber Murphy Fox drew up for us and shows some of the short-term improvements we'd like to do that we applied under the NAP program. So that's the long and short of it. I've personally worked with Solicitor Betza over the past couple weeks on finalizing an agreement, an MOU, for our group to adopt Griswold Park. We've had great conversations back and forth. We're actually at a final version, and spoke to him today. He said he would be here and support of the project or whatever. And, oh, hi. We never met in person, so that's really where we are. I'll turn it over to Pete to get into a couple more specifics, and then if anybody has any questions, feel free.
Can I ask a question before
Sure.
Pete talks? So when this story appeared, did somebody call the newspaper to say that you had been misquoted? Because it does say here, Great Lakes Insurance Services announced that a group of local business owners and professionals have been working with the city to rename and reinvent what will be known as Station Square LTD. Griswold, and then here is as we see the graphic, which says, the cut line says, Great Lakes Insurance Services LLC has announced plans to revamp Griswold Park and rename it Station Square LTD. So I think it's unfair to say that we misinterpreted something. And if there was a mistake, I'm asking, did you call Jim Martin or the newspaper to correct this?
Yeah, well, to be clear, I'm not saying that you guys misinterpreted. I said admittedly we were probably at fault, that we miscommunicated, number one.
Okay, so you miscommunicated, it wasn't the newspaper
Yeah, I
that made a
didn't say
mistake.
that the council misinterpreted. I did not say that. But I know we did have conversations with Mr. Lilly about, what was printed, and he's actually part of our project. And
Mr. Lilly is not the
I
newspaper.
understand, but it was also reported. It was also reported on the Erie Times Now website and clips on
Erie News
television.
Now, not Erie Times Now. Let's keep our media
Okay.
straight here.
You want to
Okay.
address the Great Lakes?
I mean, I think we're in an era where we have a lot of problems with people claiming that the news media is reporting things wrongly. So I think to conflate the TV station with the newspaper that's another miscommunication right there. So it's real clear that Jim Martin wrote this story, and as a former member of the Erie Times News, if it was my mistake, I would have liked to have heard from somebody who would call and say, you know what, we said it wrong. I'm thinking it's more, you said it one way, and then there was a controversy, then all of a sudden it was, oh, wait a minute, we didn't mean to say it that way. So if you could clarify that for me, I'd really appreciate it.
So in the interview process, Jim, we posted out online, that this is what we've been working on our website and our LinkedIn sites and everything else to start getting some activity. And in the meantime, we've had meetings with the city. We have had meetings with the police department. We've been having meetings with Joe Schember. So we aren't like all of a sudden just sprung this on anybody that this hasn't been in there. There's even a letter from Joe in here that he fully supports our program, and that was written on May 14th. And so that our whole goal of our whole project up there, if it was misinterpreted, I mean, I should have called Jim. That's part of, the different quotes, and it got named as the Great Lakes Project. It actually isn't the Great Lakes Project. We're just one of the neighbors in the neighborhood. And our goal is to take an area that has huge issues with regarding security, drugs, alcohol, that we are all in a major area, that we all have businesses here. And we're getting ready to dump another $10 million of investment in the downtown corridor and move another couple hundred people in here. So as we look to, we don't want to have all that distraction when we're trying to bring people into an area that, we have people passing out right in our front yards. They're shooting heroin right next to our buildings. And we're constantly trying to get to the point where it's like, okay, we want it safe for our employees. You hear the stories where somebody's knifed here, this happens here. Every morning I drive by all my properties downtown in that circle at 5 o'clock. Every morning I'm trying to wake up people that are passed out on my sidewalks, get them to move along. And so as this project starts, our whole goal is to engage this area and make it an active, positive part of the community. And by doing that, we're all investing our own money. We're not asking for city. We've worked out leases with Rick Griffiths and his property. And that's where the pickleball courts would go. They're not even on city property. The ice rink that we're looking to put in is on Brian Lilly's property where the old Channel 35 was. We're going to develop that property for an ice rink. And then the only thing that right now that's we'd like to be able to bring the musical swings in. And if you look through the stats here, musical swings are taking off around the country in Detroit. They started in Montreal. They're getting thousands and thousands of people visiting them. And so we're trying to say, let's take an area that's not being used. And if you look at all the business owners that are on the list here, we own, if you look at the list on the bottom of the front page here, everybody on this list owns every single property around the park. So we all have a vested interest in the security, no different than the security of the front door here for $1 million. And we're willing to pay for our own security by not really doing security. We're just going to make it an enjoyable place to come. And so every business owner on here has a vested interest to make it safe for their employees to be able to go outside at lunchtime and not have to deal with anything. And if you want to see what happens in our neighborhood, all you have to do is come out and hang out with some of the guys that are working up there. We have people that are just literally coming up against our buildings, putting needles in their arm. And they're not the homeless people that are city mission and everything else. They're the ones that don't want to abide by any rules to go to different places, So it's like, how do we address those? We have a direct line to the police every time we have issues where people are threatening people and, to try to help us deal with that problem. But, one of the best things we could do is make it a more vibrant place of the city. It's right in the core. And, internally, I bought the old Metro. I have 200 people looking to move in there in the first quarter of 2022. The old General Tire is another property I have. That one's undergoing major renovations right now. I've got 35 people in there. We just built the new bank on the corner over there on 12th. The old Citizens Bank right downtown starting in about a month. And so we're trying to make it a vibrant place of the city that it comes back to life. But if you want me to call Jim Martin and say, Jim, let's set the story straight. Our 501c3 was filed to the point where we can be able to take our state tax dollars and get a state credit if we get approved as our neighborhood program. Instead of sending our money, our tax dollars to Harrisburg, we can direct our tax dollars to City of Erie and keep them here and make this a vibrant area for the city. Our initial umbrella that we came up with is to run it from Liberty or from 14th Street to 12th Street and Sass to State. And that would be known as like our hypothetical Erie Station Square. And if other areas wanted to add on to that down the road, we had to pick an area, according to Tina and Kim, that we're trying to develop a nice community area. So that was the original. We didn't want to try to go too big, to start. Keep it concentrated into a certain area. And if it takes off, then we can push it a little bit this way or that way. It could be Station Square North, Station Square South, East, West, whatever. But it's just a hypothetical little umbrella on top. It's not a physical thing that we want to take over all that. It's just a restaurant could say, hey, we're in Station Square. So it's an identifier for them in that area. Kind of jumping around a little bit on it, but we put in here our little hypothetical grid on like the third page back of what the boundary line would be. The map is on there, and Weber Murphy did that for us just as an outline. It's not cut in stone. Some of this stuff is going to take time to put in. Just to give you an idea of the cost structure that we're looking to put in place, the pickleball courts are about $150 grand, just to get that. Those set in. The ice rink, the pad of concrete that goes underneath there is probably about $45,000. The actual ice rink, the synthetic ring, is actually being donated to us for free. The musical swings, there's almost a 4 to 6 month lead time unless we can get them to speed them up. But the cost just for the swings alone are over $250,000. These aren't little Mickey Mouse things that we're trying trying to make it so when people say Station Square, let's go to the swings, let's go to play pickleball. The pickleball courts can be converted to curling rinks in the winter like the EDDC did last year downtown. They had leagues that were sold out every day. We worked with the pickleball league. We have now a pickleball league, which I was surprised in Erie. They got over 100 members in the first 2 months they opened. And everything that we're doing is free. You know, we'll maintain them. We'll take care of the courts. We'll take care of the swings. We'll take care of the ice rink. So all that we're going to take care of. And so our goal is to make it all free. You know, to be able to do a really cool fountain with the Keller, which Magician, I didn't realize, grew up right by Domino's Pizza over there. And next year is his 100th anniversary to the city. You know, so we've kicked around. The Union Station building is almost 100 years old. The post office is pushing that. The Metro turned 100 years old this year, and now we have Keller is 100 years old next year. We've got a lot of age in there. We're all trying to bring it back to life for where it was before. You can go online and look at the swings, and they're all over the place, but they're lighted, they're music. Every swing has a different note to it. So if you put 6 people on the swings, you make different music. And then that music then will resonate through the park. So if you 6 got on there and somebody's going this speed, this speed, and this speed, each one has a different tone. So then that will resonate through the whole park. And so you put 6 kids on it and they're going up in the air this high versus going this low, that music is different. But people, there's trying to find the one stat here. The one city alone that put one in.
Think Jim and I could do polka with those swings?
What's that? If you get the right guys on it, you can get the right tune, you know?
Right.
And so what's happening in some parks, these are really taking off because then other people bring their own musical instruments and they put benches around the parks. And it turns into like a little symphony because people will bring their violins, they bring all the different instruments. So you set up really cool stations around that. But that's the only thing we're actually right now really looking to put in the existing park. And like I said, it's a $250,000 investment just to bring those in here. But if you look at the one page here, the one area they had, gotta put my bifocals on, I'm getting a little old here. But they had 226,000 visitors in 3 weeks. And then, you know, what's unique about this, and you know, granted we posted it online and all that stuff, but we're also trying to get a feedback. You know, what is Erie's support? On our website, when we post stuff for our office for different functions, this got the most views of any website, any article Great Lakes Insurance has ever posted. We have 13 locations and 40,000 customers. It got more hits and more shares around the country. This made it to Chicago, Boston, DC, all within an hour. And it's like this, so what we're doing isn't crazy. You know, people, the responses we're getting are very solid. So, but you know, we're trying to drive traffic into a very quiet area. The bars, restaurants that are existing there, the business owners, and make it be a thriving part of downtown. I showed you a couple renderings of the pickleball courts. Nothing's cut in stone. You know, we'll work with city planning. I've been working with Jason Sayers regarding stormwater management. The impervious areas that are currently there versus what we would take out. When we're all done, you know, we have all the equipment. We have excavators, you know, bobcats, hydro seeders, everything. So what is there today is rough construction grass. This will be a very nicely done park, probably better than anything else around with the grade of quality that we'll put in there. And but everything's done to be community oriented. You know, we have people that want to run leagues there. You know, but at the same time, we have to keep it open. You know, Frontier Park thrives. You know, this would be right in the heart of the city. Now, our biggest fear is that down the road, you know, we have a lease for 3 years here, we have a lease for 3 years here. If downtown really starts thriving like it is, now we're gonna have to figure out where to scramble to put a few more, pick them up and move them. But even to the point where we put the pickleball courts in, all the fencing that goes around it, we pushed them back so it's not right on Peach Street, so it looks nice. You know, greenscape it, put bushes around it to hide we've thought through the whole construction process, how do we do this, how do we do this, and get in and get it done and make it look nice. I'm just trying to look and see. We actually put in here, Joe's letter they sent us.
Mr. Z, we have about 3 minutes before we have to start
Yeah,
the
go ahead,
meeting.
questions. Who's got
So-
questions for me?
Questions for you?
My question is, I've been trying to find out about the status of the Amtrak station. I have heard that the lease is not going to be extended there. Can you answer that? Because it seems kind of counterintuitive to call a place Station Square if there's not going to be actual station there anymore.
Well, it's still the Station Square, what it was in the past.
And my second question, follow-up, would be, in terms of branding, why wouldn't you have just taken Griswold as, because I walked through the park today, and I took a picture of the plaque that was put in there in 1930, paying tribute to Matthew Griswold. I wondered why you wouldn't have built on that name, which is an amazing, has amazing name recognition still because of the collectibles and everything that Griswold Manufacturing did. So kind of two questions. Do you know what's going on with Amtrak?
Well, let's handle the Amtrak question first.
Yeah, so the Amtrak question is actually, that lease is with our company, Logistics Plus. It has nothing to do with our 501c3. I'm not sure I don't have the exact expiration date of their lease on me right now, but I can tell you it doesn't expire for, I think, at least 4 more years. But they actually have automatic renewals, I think 2 more 5-year automatic renewals. So any decision to get out of the building would be solely Amtrak's, not ours.
Okay, I'm just telling you that that's what I had heard from someone.
Probably in the paper.
Yeah.
No. No, it was not in the paper.
Okay.
It was somebody who's involved in local transit issues and I think it also had come through the county, so.
Yeah. So the other question about Griswold Park will be the center of Station Square. Is we're trying to brand it more than just that park. We're trying to make it so when you go to Station Square, first of all, we have land leases already negotiated around the park. So Calamari's is involved, the Magicians Club, Chris Sirianni's involved. All those people, we want to have an umbrella name called Station Square. And so then that way it encompasses, I have buildings on 12th Street. I'm right on the fringe of it. But if I say to somebody, hey, we're right on the fringe of Station Square, people know where we're at. Griswold Park's over there. It will be a core of our center, and it will be part of our advertising. But we wanted an area bigger than just that area. And then to get our 501c3, what we're looking for, we have to have an overall bigger area than just the park. And that's part of what Tina and Kim coaching us, what we need to do there, so that we can change a bigger community area to make it better.
Okay. My third question is, when you go at 5 o'clock in the morning and you tell people to move along, where are the drug addicts supposed to go?
I don't know that, but not in my front entrance to my building. Citizens Bank, they crawl right in the back of the building where the employees are coming in. I have them sleeping in my alcoves of my building. I'm like, hey guys, come on, you gotta move along. You can't hang out here. This is a place of business. I can send them to anybody's house that wants them to, but I don't know what to do with it.
We aren't asking for that. I'm seriously asking, though. You're taking upon yourself to do this,
They're
I guess,
right on my
good work
property.
to say, move along. So where are they going, or where would you like to see them go? You said that they are not the clients from the city mission. Where are people with needles in their arms going, or where would you like to see them end up?
That's out of my pay
Odine.
grade. That's out of, that's not, internally, I don't have an answer to that one. If we all did, we wouldn't have that problem. It would have been an address
It's a
problem.
mental health problem, Pete.
What's that?
It's a mental health problem. It's
Yeah,
not your problem.
and I can't correct that.
No,
And,
exactly.
Well,
you know,
it does concern me, though. You're talking about having private security. I think that there are more questions that you need to explore, especially with those who do deal with those who have mental health issues. A lot of times what happens is that we have well-intentioned people imposing solutions. And I'm not trying to pick on you, but we see this over and over again. And that's why we want you to know that I have heard that there's a sense of, from this group, that, city council, and maybe it's me in particular, maybe I'm the bad guy, you're trying to hold things up. Well, we aren't trying to hold things up when we didn't know anything about this. letter from Joe Schember looks like sort of a boilerplate letter that anybody would be able to come in and say, we get these requests all the time, would you sign these letters? But I did not know anything about this. We've heard a little bit about it. I read the story in the newspaper. So I think it's really incumbent that you need to know that City Council does have a role in this. We do have a concern. We've dealt with issues with what is happening with Perry Square, with people who are experiencing homelessness. Now you're telling us that these are different people, drug addicts. You need to, I talked to somebody who used to work at the Mental Health Association, and he had some very good advice on how to do this. Have you talked
Our
to
job
them?
isn't to police that, though. I mean, that's
Well,
not my
but you're
job.
telling me that you are. You're moving people along, and you're going to
Liz,
have
we have
private
to move along
security.
here. It's almost time to
Ed,
start.
excuse me, Mr. President, we are having a presentation.
I'm
I
telling you,
don't
it's 7:30.
understand, again, why I can't ask important questions. That's my function as a city council person. I'll be happy to follow up with you. I just want you to understand what my concerns are as a city council person. Obviously, we want to have a vibrant downtown, but we have seen this before where we have groups come in and say, we're doing this, take it or leave it. And I think we need to
We-
change that paradigm.
Well, what I still go back to is, we also have to change the trajectory of Erie to a certain point, too. We can't continue to go backwards. You know, this town has lost 40,000 people in the last 50 years. And if we don't start doing what Pittsburgh did, and I've met with the mayor of Pittsburgh, and I went through everything with him when he had to take over Pittsburgh, when it was losing people right and left. Pittsburgh's a vibrant town today because they made hard decisions to actually say, these are things we need to do to step forward. And you know, you sit back and, you know, you read the articles, we got to pump the brakes, pump the brakes, pump the brakes. And at the same time, we haven't had to pump brakes for 40 years. ABS brakes have been around for a long time. We have to change the way we look at things, because if we don't, Erie won't be on the map again. I can go around a lot of cities that are all over the place that are struggling financially. And we have an opportunity right now. We have the CARES Act money. We have so many things going for the city of Erie right now that we have the ability to change how Erie is so that we are a vibrant, surviving city in the next 50 years. We have more kids moving back today than ever before, but we have to be able to try to keep them. COVID brought them back. They've been able to work remote. And so they found Erie, they found what it was here, brought them back. But if we don't do things, they won't stay long. They'll go back to the big cities where they have more activities and everything else. We need to give opportunities to places, but certain areas, we have to make tough decisions, say, okay, this is somebody, a private investment group, that outside of the park, we could pretty much do whatever we wanted to. You know, it's private land. You know, we could move the swings onto private land someplace and then just do what we want to do. And we wouldn't have any objection to that, because the only thing we're trying to do is activate a space like Frontier. You go to Frontier Park on a weekend, that place is full of kids. There's track meets there. There's all kinds of stuff. That is a family park that is unbelievably good to the city. The amount of tax dollars that come out of Frontier are insane, because those houses all sell. They go right on the market. We're just trying to bring this piece of the 100-year-old city back to life.
Pete, thank you. Ms. Ellen is coming up with very good questions. She's not adversarial. She
Yep.
just digs into it. So she's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
find out things.
Yep.
But let me say something else. There's a big cement thing on 10th and French that a lot of people were really saying that you were crazy to bring a baseball field in here.
Yep.
We did it, though.
Yep.
And they're playing tonight.
Yep.
And it's a big part of our city.
Oh, yeah.
So I commend you guys for having the desire and the love of our city to try to make it a better place. But we have caveats that we're going to look at. That's the
Yep.
bottom line, too.
The bottom line is, I always say, as a parent and as a business owner, our job is to make Erie vibrant enough that all of our kids down the road, that's every parent's dream, is to be able to have your kids be able to stay in Erie and have it be a good decision for them, that they never look back. You know, and if we make our city to the point where, as a parent, your kids can stay here, and there's enough for them to do and enough good jobs, then we've done our job as the elder parents in the community.
Thank you, sir.
I didn't get a chance to speak with you, and I know we're out of time, so perhaps you could come back another time and speak.
You'll talk to her personally, too.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to meet with me or anybody else on our team, we're more than willing to meet with anybody. I'm down in the construction area every day. A lot of these other guys are down there because their businesses are there today. My business is coming, you know, and so, you know, we've bought old dilapidated buildings, you know, that we've torn down a couple already. Our job is to, you know, to make this a nice, vibrant hub of the city.
Thank you,
But
sir.
anyway, and Jim, you can share my cell number with anybody. You know, Jim and I go way back to, our kids played hockey together, you know, so, but he has my cell phone number. Feel free to share it with anybody. And I'd be more than happy to meet with anybody individually, and so would our team.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll close the caucus, and as soon as Miss Laurie's ready, we'll start the regular meeting. Oh, yeah, before I go, anything else for the good of the order? Anybody have questions about
On the agenda.
the agenda? Okay.
Thanks.
You guys, thank you. Okay, none there, I guess,
2-minute break? Late.
Laurie, you can start, I guess.
Roll call for the city council meeting of Wednesday, June 16th, 2021 at 7:30 PM. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Shaw, Mr. Winarski, and Mr. Witherspoon. Please stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'd like
And a
to
prayer.
have everybody think of the guy we always call the Gov. Tom Ridge had a pretty serious stroke today. He's in the hospital, in critical condition, but he's stable. So with the help of the Lord, he'll be back giving us times. Mr. Keys?
I guess we're still
stuck into that.
Yeah, okay. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you today for just allowing this council to meet and all the entire council in chambers for the first time, Lord, in a long time. And so we just ask that you guide our minds and our hearts, that we might make decisions that are pleasing to you. We lift up the Ridge family. We lift up the other families that are suffering bereavement. We ask that you send them comfort. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have no repository sales to report on this evening.
Okay.
We could go to public comments. If you could state your name and address. Thank you.
My name's Freda Tepfer, 1738 West 23rd Street, Erie. First of all, I'd like to, it's really creepy having these monitors in front of you, and that's all we see is these monitors, by the way. I want to congratulate and thank Kathy Shaw for her persistence. Right now, the process of installing the water fountain Perry Square has finally begun. And I also want to mention, I hope that the security in City Hall doesn't subtract the one place that people knew they could use a public bathroom from us. I'm here also because of parks, and I live in the Baldwin Park neighborhood, and Baldwin Park is our local park. The city cleared a whole lot of trees. Well, they cleared some trees, some mature trees, and they removed a lot of understory vegetation, and they left a very steep slope in an unvegetated manner. I'm a soil scientist. That's what my training was in. I worked in forestry for 12 years. I've worked in the environmental field and planning for over 25 years. And we did have an on-site meeting with Public Works Deputy Director. And a number of us are concerned that parks should not be just manipulated without involvement of the neighborhood. And trees should not be cut down without involvement of the Urban Forest Committee, the arborist, and the neighborhood. The Public Works Deputy Director didn't see it quite my way, and he didn't see why we needed to have a plan. It's really important that there be a comprehensive park plan, and there be plans for the parks. And if we're gonna go and do work, that we involve the neighborhood. And I agree that probably some opening up of part of that area was helpful, but not to the degree that it was done. And I was told that, well, look at example of our West Bayfront. They've been able to work with them. Well, our West Bayfront is well-funded and staffed. We're just barely off the ground. All we have is the next door neighborhood of Baldwin Park. We could use some help becoming a more organized neighborhood, but we don't have any funding. We don't have any staff. It's inappropriate for the city to be doing work like this in a park without having a plan and without consulting the neighborhood. And it's totally weird that we have an arborist and this person who is, I don't know whether he's an engineer or not, doesn't consult the arborist. It's going to be very hard to restabilize that slope now that a vertical slope has been denuded. I am concerned about this Griswold Park proposal. The parks in this town are our backyard. They're our neighborhood. And I'm talking about there are people in this city who don't have a backyard, who don't have a place to sit, whether they're homeless or drug addicts or they're just neighborhood people. And to Disneyfy Griswold Park by turning it into pickleball and an ice skating rink, we need to have a planning process. We need to have public involvement before this is done, before our park is taken away from us by this group. I would like to suggest there is a square that Erie Insurance created on 6th and Holland when they took down a convenience store, and it's all grass now. Let them put the pickleball there. Let them put the ice skating rink there. Erie Insurance has all these open spaces. Let's use those rather than taking away our open space. And I also want to say it should never have taken 8 weeks for the curb ramps on my corner to go in. That's shameful. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'm gonna have a lot of people mad at me if I don't do a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting of June 2nd and bills for payment on June 18th, 25th, July 2nd, 9th, and 16th. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brzezinski.
I guess this might be a good time to talk about the study session that we're gonna have Thursday, June 24th at 5:30. The main topic's gonna be a stormwater study,
We're not
but we are also gonna be doing a second reading of an ordinance that needs timely passage. So that being said, we can move forward, Ms. Watson?
done. We have more citizens to be heard.
I'd like to say people can't hear the Zoom, so if you're calling their name, they may not hear it.
My name is Mike Rensel. I was born in the city. I'm a small-time landlord. Before I begin, could I pass out a few informational packets? I only brought 6. I didn't realize there was 7 people on the council. May I approach?
Sure.
Can you state your address when you get back there? Thank you.
you.
I'm gonna give you 2 by accident, I'm sorry. I'm a little
Okay.
nervous.
Don't be nervous. No reason to be nervous.
Yeah, no problem. It's your city.
I only brought 6, I'm sorry, I thought there were 6.
I'll, we'll share.
Thank you. I don't live inside the city of Erie, but I have rental properties I manage. I lived in this city for quite some time. And I've been a landlord for 26 years. I work more than 40 hours a week. I work about 50, 55 hours a week.
How many properties do you have?
I only have 5 properties, but I also have a full-time job. And I was born into poverty, a low income, and I worked out of it. I'm middle class. I rented a property to a couple of men, and I haven't had too many problems. Some, you know, with the city, you know, with violence and stuff, and people fighting. I rented this apartment to these individuals, and they found out what church I went to, and they told me they did not like me because I was a Christian, and I go to a church with minorities, and they damaged my property. And they sent me text messages on my phone, anti-Christian messages, and they stated on my cell phone, this cell phone here, that they intentionally damaged my property, and they demanded a monthly income from me. They told me I had to pay $2,000 a month to them, or I'll be injured. They told me after they damaged my property, they told me they're gonna report the damages to code enforcement, which they did. And they said they're gonna put me out of business, and they're gonna tell law enforcement that I rent to minorities. And I had one of the city inspectors or city code enforcement guys call me. And
You can take that down, sir.
Okay, and I explained the situation to him, that the damages to my property were done by the tenants, and that I reported this to the police. And he says, well, I'll talk to the police about it. Then he called me back, and he says, they're not gonna do nothing. After I have all this from their phones onto my phone. And the police has told me, oh, it's part of being a landlord. The code enforcement guy told me they're not gonna do anything, but they like my photographs of my damage to my property, so they can use that to prosecute me for having a damaged rental property. This is what the guy told me. I immediately went to the police again. I got threatened. I've been assaulted twice in the last year. The police are worthless here. 2 of them, yeah. I talked to 2 different police officers. They don't wanna do nothing. The packet I gave you guys, I talked to one of the DA. He's deceased, is Sambro. I had a class with him about 10 years ago on how to assist the DA with people that that damage your rental property. And I explained to the police that this is a crime. And they just said they're just not gonna do nothing about it. And it's basically my tough luck. And that's why I'm here today. The law enforcement just turned their back on me, just telling me it's my problem. That's what I get for investing inside the city of Erie. I invested a couple $100,000, and the law enforcement just turned their back on me. And now I have to worry about getting prosecuted anytime these guys damage my property, because I was told that if they come back and damage my property, I have to repair it immediately, or I could be prosecuted. And this is like ridiculous. And this is what I'm told from code enforcement. And I repaired and cleaned up the damage, and I put all the trash bags in front. And they said they came over, they couldn't find too much wrong with my house. But I'm just worried about how this could be inside the city, just ignore crime, and then threaten to prosecute a person for being a victim of a crime. I never heard anything like this. And I was wondering if anyone here can help me.
Did you ever think of getting an attorney?
I tried this, I called the Quinn Law Firm, no one got back to me. But I think if someone commits violent crimes and threats, and the two individuals left the neighborhood, they commit crimes against other people in the neighborhood, and they had to leave. And this is what happens. I can't believe it. I got everything on my phone. My story sounds unbelievable. I know the name of the code enforcement guy. I know that there was a deputy chief detective I talked to. I know his name too. I know the people's names that I spoke to. And they tried to tell me at first it was a civil dispute. But I said, no, these are crimes, like extortion, like criminal mischief. And the police just turned their back on me. Tell me I'm a landlord and that's part of the job, to have crime committed against you, I guess. I just don't understand it.
Mr. Mayor, do we have somebody speak to him? Okay.
Right. And I'll say this, I told code enforcement, one of the individuals in my apartment was gonna get inspected, and we're gonna stop my apartment from getting inspected. And I called code enforcement, and I asked for the police to be there, and I don't think they're too happy with me right now, because I bothered them every time I either got assaulted or when my property was damaged. Code enforcement, I don't think, in the city of police, I don't think no one wants to do anything. But I would love to talk to somebody that's gonna really help me out. Because I got everything, I took classes on how to deal with people. I got all the information on my phone. I got photographs, if you'd like to see them, Mayor, and like to see my text messages. I understand why people don't trust the police now. They just turned their back on me and told me it's my problem, and then I get assaulted.
I don't know that we got your contact information, and where do you want these photos to go next?
I would like them back if that's possible, and then I'll give the mayor my contact information.
Give it to the clerk if you would.
Yeah.
To the clerk.
I just need your address.
Okay, Liz.
I could give it to somebody. I'd rather not the public know where I live.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Can't make exceptions on the address rule if. Because once we start next time, it'll be like you didn't make him say his address.
Stop the whole thing. But these new things, if we want to talk, you and me, give it a green light. So, just press the button.
Oh,
And then you're
to turn it off?
Yeah, no.
It's a laptop.
For the public record, we are not making an exception by not having the gentleman give his address. Because he was threatened, he has a right to keep that from public knowledge. So, just so everybody understands that, we do need the name and address. Do we have any more? Anybody on Zoom or what's
Yes,
happening?
we have a few on Zoom. So I'm gonna try this. We're gonna see if it works. So Diane Esser.
Is Frank trying to get something going here, or what?
He believes there's somebody on Zoom.
All right.
There's two people.
Diane, if you're talking, I'm not sure if we can hear you.
Diane, what's the? Check it out
You
here.
can't hear with.
Headphones.
No headphones? Pilot the tower. That ain't working.
Diane, hold on a second. We're having some audio issues in council chambers. Try again, Diane. Just kind of keep talking.
I can hear you.
you are unmuted. I have you on Zoom and I have you on the stream. I just don't have you in the chambers for council.
I can hear you.
I can hear.
If you want me to start?
I got it. Perfect. Yeah, go ahead, sir. Ma'am,
Okay.
I'm
All
sorry.
right. So, just an FYI, I'm the support coordinator for the legislation for the Pennsylvania Parks and Streets Climate Preservation and Justice Act. I produced the Green Connection documentary, Making a Change for Climate Change, that can be seen on addressearth.com. And I'm also a Sierra Club board member. So as an environmental educator, I'm speaking to these best practices, especially parks. So I recently saw postings on social media of the cut at Baldwin Park, and that the neighbors were blindsided by this cut. There were levels of concern, including the habitat destroyed, but most of all, none of the neighbors were aware of the cut, and so you had angry neighbors calling their city arborist, who also was blindsided by the action. So that just doesn't seem right. But so I contacted Scott Solinger, who is the region's he's Penn State Extension and our region's urban forester, because I wanted him to take a look at this. I'm so sorry, they're working on my roof. So Scott and I have worked together, and we've gone to townships with people like from Penn State, Sea Grant also, addressing these best practices for urban infrastructure, and I wanted Scott's opinion on this. So just an FYI, one of Scott's concerns was there is a large tree by the road in this cut area that is largely dead anyway, but it was left behind. No, they didn't take that. But he mentioned that its root system would also been additionally compromised by this cut, and it really does present a present and real danger because it is close to your electric lines, so I can make note of that. One of the major concerns, however, was the lack of transparency by this Baldwin cut. I can tell you that when the city of Erie did the Glenwood Park cut, they partnered with the Foundation for Sustainable Forests. The Times News covered that, the media covered the story. Featured was your excellent arborist, Sarah Peelman, who was working with Annie Sochi Maloney, Guy Dunkel from the Sustainability Foundation for Parks. This forest. So the Glenwood Cut Park was covered in all areas of transparency. There were neighborhood and public meetings, media announcements were made, and there was a press conference. And social media did cover this cut. But for the Baldwin Park cut, and for whatever reason, the city park or the park manager, there was no attendance at any neighborhood meetings. There was no City of Erie public meetings or a public announcement in media. There was no social media postings, and like I said, no press contact. So no bases were covered. So the Baldwin Park neighbors were truly, understandably upset. So the bottom line is the city parks belong to the people. We know that. People that are hired for park care and Parks and Rec, they have a responsibility to manage these with best practices, and they need to be cognizant of that. That transparency is important, and it's for best relations and trust. I would like to preface that my documentary leads with the decimation and carnage of a Girard Township park that got lots of fines from the DEP. The Lake Erie Community Park leads my documentary because it is the mishandling of parks that is epidemic in the worst practices that is pervasive within our Commonwealth. So I've worked with these people, Penn State Extension, Pennsylvania Sea Grant, and on our parks that have been compromised, and we work to educate. We urge green best practices and ordinances be implemented, not just for parks, but for your streets. Your streets and your parking lots. I mean, we have 90-degree days, and that means it's 130. That's not healthy for you or your children or any of your citizens. So we work toward this education to get these street trees in, and the federal government now has a website that you can go to. You can get what you need. And I'll be sending you all a copy of these plans.
Almost.
So I came today not only to address this worst practice issue, but talk to these ordinances, and I'm speaking to the best practices and qualifications to the staff that are hired to she has these qualifications and she works toward that end.
Thank you, your 5 minutes is up.
Thank you very much, and I'll copy some of these links for you.
Thank you.
For green infrastructure improvement.
Address.
For your budgets. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ms. Esser, can we get your address for the record?
It's gone, I guess.
I think I have it, but.
Frank, are we finished?
We'll get used to this.
Now, we have a few more, but I believe Lori needs her address. Diane, are you able to unmute yourself and give us your address?
How much money did this cost us?
I don't think it works. Frank just needs to be in the room.
I think we ought to go back to Zoom.
I'll try to get her address for you, Lori, off the registration
We ought to
sheet.
go back to Zoom.
Next up is Andrea Stelman.
Hi there.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we
Hi,
can.
my name is Andrea Stelman. I live at 2313 Haybarger Avenue. I wanted to speak tonight because Belleville Park is right in my neighborhood, and so I watched my dog there for like about 10 years, and the day that I saw them cutting those trees down, I was really kind of crushed. And I talked to the city dairy worker, and I was like, hey, what's going on over here? Nobody said anything to anybody. And he said, well, I'm not really sure, but we're cutting down these trees. And I asked if they were putting in a parking lot. He said he wasn't sure. And so I contacted my neighbor, Freda, who was there to speak tonight. And I've talked to several neighbors. I walk my dog every single day. And I wave at people. I talk to the kids over at Prescaria Projects, all the way up to Baldwin Park and throughout. And I know a lot of neighbors couldn't make it here tonight, but I would like to carry their concerns as well. They were very frustrated and really upset that no one asked anybody who lives in that neighborhood. And from what I gathered, nobody's trying to lord over the park or be greedy of it. Actually, I want everybody to enjoy that park as much as I have, because I only live blocks from there. But I will say, in walking through that park, and I told this to Chuck Zisick as well, since they put those porta potties into the pickleball courts directly underneath the Brogan lights, and not before that had I ever cleaned up syringes or needles or garbage to that extent from that park. But after that porta potty, those two porta potties were put in, I have cleaned it up several times. And I do have pictures of it, but it's a little traumatizing for me. I'm in first-time recovery. But this isn't about me. This is about the kids that play in that park, the people that walk their dogs. And at the very minimum, I asked Chuck, would you please put in another garbage can? Kids are over there playing basketball and stuff, and they like to probably throw away their water bottles, and I end up picking them up, and so do other concerned neighbors. So I'm not trying to lord over the park or anything, and I would encourage everybody to have fun there, but with more people comes more garbage, and then they cleared out those trees without asking anybody, and want other people to enjoy it, but then we have to consider, what about the homeless guys' stuff that got bulldozed down the hill? And what about our elderly and disabled neighbors who can't walk through that park because A, it's not well lit, and B, the sidewalks all cracked and messed up? These are all concerns for our entire community. And before anything else is done, I would really like to echo the sentiments of the people that spoke before me about my concerns for that park, because I live over here, and it's important to me, and it's important to my neighbors too. So, thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Rob Britton.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. Just congratulations to the mayor, and I want to say to the mayor and all of city councilmen monument to any black person is to the year 1812, to bury that in Piper Borough. My father, U.S. black veteran, Robert Bradley Britton, opened the first black funeral home in Erie, located at 1524 Peach Street in 1944. He was a veteran and a formally educated professional, graduated from the University of Pittsburgh Mortuary School. And I would like to thank the city of Erie and the entire Erie community for all their support during my 20-year tenure running the Summer League Basketball League, with the inner city children during the summers, and your continued support and help very much appreciated by both me and the children who are now grown with participating in that league. Now we need your help and support. My family and I are asking for your help in getting the city of Erie approval and support, both in creating and supporting a permanent memorial at 524 Peach Street in Erie to honor my father, Robert B. Britton, and his vision for the need in the black community regarding funeral home services and black entrepreneurship. Please help us make this dream come true in a way that you can and grant. We wish to have an official public ceremony of dedication in his honor, as well as we'd like to be honored by your attendance. And so we've reached out to the Historical Society, and I've heard some talk tonight about several places. Griswold Park has come up, that maybe since it's so close, that 1524 memorial. We're not looking for the blue and gold memorials that the state does, but the blue and white ones, the ones you put down in your insurance, which I think made reference to that how quickly they got those historical markers, and yet we don't have a single black person really in recent history. And that's a part of Erie's history. And I think it's time, and maybe this will open the door for others who are in our community, minorities and other blacks, who have forged the way and made Erie what it is. And I think we owe it to them to leave a permanent memorial, a legacy to those people. And I like commend the mayor, but yet I've been reaching out to the mayor for like 3 weeks on this one, and I haven't heard from my good friend. So maybe, in a sense, I'm excited about it, but if I have to come up there and deal with this, I really will. But hopefully we can work together. And for so long, we haven't been able to commend Mel. And I look around Mr. Keys, I see so many people who, people forged the way for these people to be here. They just didn't appear at city council. I think of, all the warriors on the street. So I want to, solicit your support. I really want to put Liz in charge of this town. I don't know. She's just a great person. I see what she's doing on June 19th. I see what she's doing all kinds of things. And, I just want grassroots as well as the formal marker and the ceremony. In terms of the finances, we're not asking you for money. We've already solicited and obtained financial funding for this project. Please come. Thank you for your time, and I hope to hear from you guys. I don't have to come up there next meeting. This video thing is not my thing. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That ends it, I think, huh? I hope.
Sheila Wonger?
Ms. Watson, moving right along.
He has another one.
Sheila Watson? Sheila Wonger, I apologize. Wonger.
One more.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Hi, go ahead.
Good evening. I didn't know that I was to speak tonight, but I'm concerned.
Name and address, please.
Yes, Sheila Wonger, 2011 Fairmount Parkway.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Excuse me, I'm just concerned. I really didn't know that I was going to speak tonight, but I just want to congratulate the mayor. He has done great things so far. Congratulate the staff for what they're doing for the city. But I will be speaking at future meetings. There is a concern that I do have, and I will be addressing that at the next meeting. I would like to, I'm feeling missed because I did not first acknowledge God. So I first give, I'd like to acknowledge God tonight. And like I said, I will be attending the meeting on next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, that concludes the public comment on Zoom.
ordinances for final passage.
There you go.
Council file number 16227, official ordinance number 32, 2021, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $270,566 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, for Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG 21 projects. Sponsored by Mrs. Schaaf, seconded by Ms. Allen. The council filed bill number 16227, and now known as official file ordinance 32, 2021, be finally passed by City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brzezinski. City Council pass official file ordinance number 32, 2021, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file number 16228, official ordinance number 33, 2021, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $3,211,390 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, and $5,000 program income for a total of $3,216,390 for Community Development Block Grant CD 21 projects. Sponsored by Mrs. Schaaf, seconded by Ms. Allen, the council file ordinance bill number 16228, and now known as official file ordinance number 33, 2021, be finally passed by City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, and Mr. Brzezinski. City Council pass official file ordinance 33, 2021, finally by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file number 16229, official file ordinance 34, 2021, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $809,159 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, for Home M21 projects. Sponsored by Mrs. Schaaf, seconded by Ms. Allen, the council file ordinance bill number 16229, and now known as official file ordinance 34, 2021, be finally passed by City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brzezinski. City Council passed official file ordinance 34, 2021 by yeas 7, nays 0.
Ms. Watson, may I speak for a second? Mr. Mayor, maybe you can help me. This next ordinance that we're doing, where you talk about the Insurance Fraud Prevention Authority, the police chief, and again, I am pro-police, I'll tell the whole world that, you know that. He was on TV today, the 5:30 news, and he was talking about hiring a detective to do this. In past history, when I was on the school board, we were getting $5 million a year from GE. And we were putting in all kinds of beautiful programs. And nobody looked past the 5 years. When the money stopped from GE, we had to let go a whole lot of young, good people. And the county is still really happy about it, because they got all those people. But the money ran out. My question is, are we gonna take a detective out of the ranks? Are we gonna add one? And then will the money be there for this, guy for 3 years or 4 years, or do we know?
I'm not sure. I know there are some hires that he's gonna do that are short-term, maybe a year or two even. And I think those people will be hired with the understanding that it is a short-term.
They know it, all right.
It may be like a retired policeman that comes back for a year, that sort of thing.
That'd be my question.
Within the union, if they're hired as a police officer, they'll have full union rights and full retention rights.
Mr. Keys,
Yeah, I heard him.
lower that, you heard it?
But,
Okay.
yeah, I think we can hire people with understanding this is a one-year contract or a
Almost
two-year
like on
contract.
consignment, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. That was my question. Thank you, sir.
sure.
Council file number 16230, official ordinance number 35, 2021, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $168,383 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue and providing for the expenditure thereof for the 2021 Insurance Fraud Prevention Authority. sponsored by Mr. Winarski, seconded by Mr. Keys. The council file ordinance bill number 16230, and now known as official file ordinance 35/2021, be finally passed by City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brzezinski. City Council pass official file ordinance 35/2021 by yeas 7, nays 0. Okay. Ordinances for first reading. Council file number 16231, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $300,000 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Funding is from a grant from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Economic and Community Development for purchase of a fire truck. Sponsored by Mrs. Schaaf, seconded by Ms. Allen, the council file ordinance number 16231, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brzezinski. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16231 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file number 16232, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $140,743 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue, providing for the expenditure thereof, 2021 Auto Theft Prevention Authority.
Excuse me, Mr. Watson, that, just for clarification, we now know the answer, that these positions will be known as temporary type positions. But the auto theft prevention was the one that I was talking about. I had the idea, just wrong page.
So,
Keys?
so do you know if we are hiring a contractual person, or is this gonna be a City of Erie detective who is gonna assume the slot?
We would be hiring somebody to do this, right?
That will not be a city police officer.
Well, you'll be a city police officer, but for a specific period of time, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Laurie?
Sponsored by Mr. Winarski, seconded by Mr. Keys, that council file ordinance number 16232, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brzezinski. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16232 by yeas 7, nays 0. Council file number 16233, an ordinance of the City of Erie repealing and replacing Article 349 Alarm System, definitions, providing for the assessment of fines for all false alarms, authorizing the administration and enforcement of these regulations by the City Department of Public Safety, and prescribing penalties for violation. Sponsored by Mrs. Schaaf, seconded by Ms. Allen, the council file ordinance number 16233, having been read on first reading, is adopted by City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brzezinski. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16233 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file number 16234, an ordinance amending ordinance number 26, 1958, the traffic code of the City of Erie by installation of stop signs at 3 intersections. West 9th Street and Lincoln stopping west on 9th, Homeland Boulevard and Hilltop stopping Hilltop, West 21st and Raspberry stopping Raspberry. Sponsored by Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Mr. Keys, the council file ordinance number 16234, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, and Mr. Brzezinski.
No.
City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16234 by yeas 6, nays 1 on first reading. Okay, council file ordinance number 16235, an ordinance approving the plan with the Erie Sewer Authority for the issuance of an aggregate amount not to exceed $30,285,000 sewer revenue bonds, series of 2021, and setting forth the amount, interest rates, and maturity dates of the bonds, authorizing the authority to proceed with a plan of financing, authorizing the execution and delivery of a lease agreement, and the incurrence of lease rental debt thereby. Authorizing the specified officers of the City of Erie to prepare and certify the debt statement and to do all other acts necessary to carry out the provisions of the ordinance, setting forth the payment of the sewer revenue bonds and the source of such payments, repealing all inconsistent ordinances, and providing that the ordinance is effective immediately. Sponsored by Mr. Keys, seconded by Mr. Winarski, the council file ordinance number 16235, having been read, is adopted on first reading by City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Shaw, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brzezinski.
Again, at our special session on June 24th, we're going to be dealing with the stormwater study. We will also have a second reading on this to make sure that the folks at PNC Bank are able to meet the timing involved in making everything happen. Okay.
City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16235 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading.
Move the balance.
Motion to move the balance, Mr. President?
Mr. Winarski, move the balance, and seconded by Mr. Witherspoon. Any separations?
Juneteenth.
Separate 2 and 3, just to, so the public, if they haven't seen the agenda, know that we're, doing the designation for June for refugees and immigrants, and then Juneteenth also, so
Okay.
give a little buzz and attention to that.
Sure. Any others? Okay.
Voting, voting on the motion of the balance of the agenda. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, and Mr. Brzezinski. Council resolved by the City Council of the City of Erie that in recognition of the contributions that refugees and immigrants make to our community and in affirmation of the City of Erie's official designation as a certified welcoming city, Erie City Council proudly proclaims June as Refugee and Immigration Heritage Month. We take note of the many ways that the new Americans make a positive impact in our community by starting small businesses, enriching our arts and culture, and enhancing our educational institutions. Discussion?
I proposed this with an assist from Megan Carpenter, the mayor's assistant, because of the work she's been doing on making sure that Erie is a welcoming community. And I was interviewed about this earlier today, and I said, you know, the usual narrative you can pull out is, well, you know, I'm the, in my case, the granddaughter of Italian immigrants on my mother's side. But we also know that all of us, unless we're Native Americans, have come from somewhere else. It's sometimes we want to make sure we have the right language when we speak about this also, because we also have African Americans on our city council, and their ancestors were not immigrants, they were enslaved people in all likelihood. So, but we just want to make sure that people know that Erie is a welcoming community, especially as some of those numbers are going to be increasing. It's my understanding, was there a naturalization ceremony today, Mayor? So the mayor goes to the naturalization ceremonies when possible. And so I had stressed when I was interviewed earlier today that it's not easy to become an American citizen. It's a long process that also involves making sure you can pass the citizenship test and also, paying a fee to go through that process. So that's why I'm sponsoring this today. So I'm sure that everybody has a country or a region of origin story of their own on city council. So, and
Definitely
we all
welcome.
make the city more vibrant. Our ancestors did, and the newcomers are also.
We welcome them all as Americans, that's for sure.
Voting on the resolution, Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brzezinski. Motion passes, yeas 7, nays 0. Resolved by the City Council of the City of Erie in recognition of the fact that Governor Tom Wolf signed legislation 2 years ago designating June 19th as Juneteenth National Freedom Day in Pennsylvania, Erie City Council hereby also designates June 19th as Juneteenth National Freedom Day in the City of Erie. On June 19th, 1865, Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, more than 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation with news that the Civil War had ended and that Confederate General Robert E. Lee had surrendered in Virginia 2 months earlier. In proclaiming June 19 as Juneteenth National Freedom Day in Erie, we also acknowledge that prominent Erie early settlers held enslaved people in Erie. More information on that can be found at www.sharedheritage.org, which has an extensive collection of information on Black history in Erie County, including a driving tour.
And for
Discussion?
this
Ms. Ellen?
resolution, I just wanted to actually thank Lori, our city clerk, who had suggested that this is something that we should recognize. If people have been following the news, you know that the U.S. Senate had just passed a resolution, I think it was yesterday or the day before, making Juneteenth a national holiday. So we'll be in sync with what's going on in the rest of the country. And there's been so much discussion in recent months about what is our shared heritage. We had Rob Britton on earlier today talking about his father as an entrepreneur and had a funeral home. I wanted to commend all the groups that were involved in that shared heritage website and driving tour in Erie, where you can follow the trail of Black history in Erie. So I think we're becoming more conscious and conscientious of our history. And even though Juneteenth originated in Texas, I think it might be startling for people to realize that there were some famous people in Erie who held enslaved people a long time ago. So you can learn more about that at www.sharedheritage.org.
Thank you, Ms. Ellen.
Voting on the resolution, Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brzezinski. Motion passes, yeas 7, nays 0. Mr. President, we have a waive rules.
We do. Oh, yes, we do. Okay.
The engineering department has a reimbursement that cannot wait. It needs to be done in a timely fashion before the June or July meeting that's
Right.
in the middle. Resolved by the City Council of the City of Erie, that the contract for invoice number 1802632258, local share of state incurred costs, McBride Viaduct, MPMS 58232, be and same is hereby awarded to Comptroller Operations, AR PennDOT non-APRAS PO Box, Harrisburg, in the amount of $6,255.13, and the proper city officials be and they are hereby authorized and directed to sign and said contract on behalf of the City of Erie. Voting on waiving the rules, Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brzezinski. Voting on the resolution, Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brzezinski. Motion passes. Yeas 7, nays 0. This takes us to committee reports.
Committee reports, Ms. Ellen? Roll them.
Okay, I apologize. I had myself muted during those two previous things that I talked about. So Hope somehow people were able to hear me. Okay, short committee report. I attended Blighted Property Review Committee, and at that meeting, I think it was last week, one of the properties we blighted is in the 1700 block of West 6th Street. So I just wanted to sort of give a reminder that blight can occur anywhere. And in this particular case, this one is tangled up in a death and, you know, some family member being in a nursing home. So sometimes we make stereotypes about where the blight occurs, and it's not just always in one particular neighborhood here. We got today in our mailboxes, or maybe it came earlier, the Pennsylvania Greenways and Trails Summit, which is coming up in Erie at the Bayfront Convention Center, September 19th through the 21st. When I attended the Council of Governments meeting last week, we heard a really good presentation from Erie County about what this conference means coming to Erie. The theme is connecting Pennsylvania's land and water trails. This is going to be a great opportunity as we're emerging from COVID to be able to show off our waterfront and also our trails here, including the Bluff Trails, Presque Isle State Park. So put that on your calendar. And if you are interested, you can go to weconservepa.org to learn more about that. Also at that meeting, I learned that the county itself is working on a park, trails, and recreation plan. I believe the county has applied for a grant, so I think this is a good time to carry on these conversations about parks and recreational areas and how we envision them and what we'd like to see in our city in terms of parks and, you know, public-private partnerships. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Ellen. Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple items. Erie Parking Authority, I attended the board meeting. Just a couple of items there. Finances are on target. They're getting better with the reopening, so that's always a good thing for them and, of course, many other organizations and businesses. There are continuing equipment upgrades. They're also looking at better aligning some of the resources through better organization. So there's some things going on with staffing and of course, with improved technology. It's always helping to serve everyone better. There's a couple items that are still out for discussion with the municipal agreement with the authority, and also there's an extension agreement with the parking authority, which is going to be addressed soon. I know the city administration's working on those. With the information presented to us on the park changes and the tree cutting, I just want to say that, yeah, of course, maintenance is always going to be required. It's always going to need to happen, but if there are major changes that are occurring and that are going to affect the aesthetics and the overall appearance of the spaces, I think it would be beneficial to have some discussion, make it public so that there are discussions on that. I think it'd be beneficial, and as one person said that this is their backyard, so I think it's important to have those discussions. Again, we can't talk about every single thing that occurs, but if there's like a major change occurring, I agree that there should be some discussion and some public notification. And last thing, I just wanted to talk about the. I just want to thank the Station Square Initiative folks who spoke to us at caucus session today. I appreciate you stepping up. I mean, there's a lot of. They could be doing this elsewhere, but they're in the city, so I appreciate them looking to make an investment to help out the neighborhood. We know there's issues. We heard a lot of those issues today. We need to resolve those issues, but I think providing more activity, providing more investment is going to help that neighborhood. It's going to help the city. Again, we have to address the issues that are currently going on there with loitering and so forth, but whatever needs to occur needs to have some discussion and collaboration with the city and all the businesses. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the next steps are there and to see what we can do to work together with the city and how we can help to make that the best project it can. And I think in the end, by making these investments, it's going to help the neighborhood and hopefully bring in more businesses, bring in more investments. So we'll look forward to seeing where that goes. So that's my report. Thank you.
I give you a strong second on that one, Dave. Very good. Ms. Schaaf, you've been quiet tonight.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just waiting my turn.
Okay.
I attended the City Planning Commission and the zoning hearing board meeting, and I was with Freda at her meeting at Baldwin Park. And hopefully, when it's all said and done, there will be sustaining greens, good things going on with lights, and will be a great park. Ms. Dahlmeck had mentioned needles found in the toilets, and unfortunately, that's a big problem. We do have a drug problem in Erie, and that is one of the bad consequences of having outdoor Johns. So hopefully we'll take care of our drug problem and things will be on the lookout. I also attended with the mayor the SPCP Trust Building Series. That was a presentation for the Summer Jams program, and it was nice talking to the students. I am so very thankful to my council colleagues, for the administration and the Public Works Department, headed by Dave Mulhaville and Chuck Zisk, that there is going to be a drinking fountain at Perry Square near the stage. And I am very excited about that because we have such hot temperatures in the summertime, and definite water resource is needed for our city people. Thank you. June 26th is the last Harbor View mini golf session in Erie, so unfortunately they will be closing. I'm really going to miss them. My husband and I walk almost daily, and we like to wave hi to them and watch the people enjoy their mini golf. And on our walks, people often ask, oh, we're new to the city, or we're from Pittsburgh, or we're from here and there. What is there to do? So unfortunately, I will not be able to tell them that there's a family-friendly miniature golf place in Erie here. So very sad about that. But I also caught the end of the police and firefighters meeting the children at, now I'm Booker T. Washington Center. So that was nice to do that. This is an announcement for the summertime that I do want to share. When I was a teacher, I got to have my summers off after going to classes in the summer. And I would take a piece of paper, and every single week I would pick a day, and we would go to one park in the city of Erie. We would pass this paper along to many of our friends, so it would be much easier to do now with social media. So my children were never alone. We would meet at a destination like the Nadeau Park, the Lincoln Park, the Walzak Park, Perry Square. They used to have lunch jam sessions there for lunch. Well, anyway, so that's how my kids spent their summers. One day a week, they knew they were going to be with friends. The Northeast Park out at Gibson had on Thursdays a lunch, and I did this all in advance. So keeping your children busy, if you are able to be with them or their caregivers or their babysitters, is as simple as going to a park, because a park doesn't cost any money, and we used to bring our lunches. Just remember to throw away the trash in the trash cans. I visit the parks, and you know, they do the best they can. We have a limited amount of people taking care of our parks, and it just really saddens me when I see trash. And this is not acceptable. The Presque Isle just had that on the news yesterday, where people are being trashy at Presque Isle. Adults need to instill in their children at a young age that they need to take care of the environment. And parking with your car in a non-designated area is not acceptable on the parks either. I often see people taking their cars right onto the playground. The children should not be exposed to the exhaust system of a car. You should be able to play without worrying about trucks and cars going back and forth on a playground. There's an area for parking. Please use it. And that's all. I want to leave on a good note, though. So the good note is that we have a lot of things to do this summer. We have a lot of parks, and we have water fountains. So there are wonderful things to do with, you know, a low budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Winarski, roll 'em.
Thank you, Mr. President. I might be over a few different items. Couple things in particular, as I do every year, except last year, unfortunately, we did not have a summer rec program. Once again, I encourage the parents and grandparents to get their siblings to sign up for the numerous different programs, to whether it be golf, tennis, art, theater, sports. Please help them to spend some time this summer doing something that is constructive. In the past, for whatever reason, this year council did not get a copy of the summer rec program, but it is online on the City of Erie. I do believe a lot of the school kids may have gotten them through the schools, but please read them, find something that is a great opportunity that may be of interest to the kids, and utilize it. Mr. Witherspoon, I'm sure, will bring up his basketball league, which he should. That's been a great success for many years. I'll let him say the 30 plus or whatever it was, but that's good. They offer breakfast, lunch, afternoon snack. Kids can be fed. They can have something to do. So please take advantage of something that the city and a lot of the sponsors have to offer. And we can't thank our sponsors enough for partnering up with the city and trying to help our youth and give them something to do during the summer months. Another item I had, you know, we do get a lot of, or we have been getting a lot of different complaints on different things regarding what can the police do. The police don't do this, the police can't do that, the police don't do this. I don't know if we've reached a point, and I haven't discussed it with all the colleagues yet on council, have we reached a point in the city of Erie where we have to upgrade our manpower? You know, before we used to have a juvenile division, and was speaking with the police chief, that I think would be huge to build back up, and maybe that would help issues later on that we are dealing with today, whether it be the gun violence or the different gatherings of fireworks or robberies. I mean, we have, in the last year or two, have had more, I think, police complaints than ever. And it's not all, say, major crimes. It can be misdemeanor crimes, but it's still affecting our neighbors, our neighborhoods, and our city. So when we hear we don't have enough manpower or we don't have somebody that can address that, that isn't a good answer for us to give our citizens. So within the next couple months here, we're gonna have to figure out if it's something we can afford in our budget for 2022 and beyond. It's just something we really should look into, and we do, naturally, we know it's one of the biggest parts of our budget, but it's something I think we should definitely look into. That being said, you know, and I know this is a small one, but it's summertime. People, put your garbage out, please, on the day of your garbage pickup. Not 2 days before, 3 days before, 4 days before, because all it does is degrade the neighborhood a little bit to the extent of animals can get into it, and the smell, and it just, what helps a good neighborhood or be a good neighbor is thinking about your neighbor. And really, when you put your trash out, your garbage, especially in the summer months, things tend to ripen a little quicker. I would ask if we could just put the garbage out on your designed garbage day. The only other thing, the Erie Station Square project that we had presented to us tonight, you know, it was very impressive. I guess it would have been nice as a council, as a partner, that we may have known something a little sooner of what possibly the intent was of that property. But anytime you have public or private businesses that want to invest and partner with the city into improving any part of the city, it doesn't have to be the downtown, it could be any neighborhood, we have to welcome that any way we can. Yes, it does come with possibly insurance regulations and other things of who's going to maintain and what cost will it come to the city. Actually, I believe in this one, the city might actually save a few dollars because they won't have to maintain that Griswold Park. But with that being said, I do believe it would be an asset, not just for the downtown, but for the city as a whole. So we appreciate the efforts there, and we look for more information regarding that.
Mr. Lenarski, your time is up.
I think so. Thank you all. Good night.
Mr. Witherspoon.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. President. First and foremost, I want to thank my colleagues, the administration, clerk's office, for the get well messages and phone calls. I appreciate it very much. Regarding the Summer Basketball League, since Mr. Winarski brought it up, we plan to start our first game July 7th. I received information today from Creative Imprint that they are having problems receiving from the supplier the T-shirts, simply because the supplier's employees are not coming back to work. They are making more money off work. And that seems to be a trend right now. And if that be the case, we may set it back a week, or we'll do what we did 31 years ago. We'll play shirts and skins.
Paint numbers on their back.
But the kids...
Mel, how does that work with the girls?
Kids have signed up, and we have quite a few. We have the East 19th Street. We have the Bayview Park ready to go. And we have the Biddy basketball camp for the 6, 7, 8, and 9-year-olds, the starters. That begins this coming Monday at Spoons Court 2, the Eagles Nest Complex on Pennsylvania Avenue between 12th and 11th. We will have a week there on the 25th. They will receive their medals and their special trophies that they earned. And parents are welcome to be there. And of course, council and administration. Normally, Mayor Schimber has been present to come speak to the kids, the police chief, as well as the fire chief. And I think they liked that more than they did the basketball. I guess because the mayor and the chief didn't holler at them like I did. So, but we plan to have, we have 38 signed up, and we always know that another 5 or 6 going to come in, can I get in? And I always say yes. I never turn a kid down. So I'll keep you posted on that. And we're looking forward to a good season. To talk a little bit about what Councilwoman Schaaf said, I have the same problem at the 19th Street Court. We have 6 to 8 barrels for garbage, and we pick up more water bottles and Gatorade bottles sitting on the ground right around the can. And it just don't make sense. And when my volunteers and I arrive, that's the first thing we do, we clean up, because we don't want to, how you play in a mess? It just irks me. But what I'm going to ask Public Works to do is make some signs. It may help, it may not. It may embarrass somebody. But we put some signs up, you know, put trash in the garbage can. This is your park. This is your court. You know, it just have a person's name on it, but it don't belong to me. And it just irks me, Cap. And I'd like to see where they live and see if the water bottles is in their front yard. But other than that, we're looking for a very good season, and I thank you very much. It's good to be back. Thank you, Mr. President.
Good to have you back, Mr. Witherspoon. Mr. Keys.
I don't like not being able to see myself. But anyways.
There you are.
But anyways, no report today. I just want to tell the citizens of Erie to be safe this summer, to stay in conduct that is positive, and if you see people who are doing things that are not positive, I'm asking you to walk away, and I'm asking you to find something else positive to do. The city has a lot of recreational offerings, a lot of things for children to do. And we need more for some of the older adults to do and places for them to go to. And so, and if all possible, keep your kids under supervision and go out and walk with them. Go shoot the ball around. There's a lot of data saying that we're in the city not the healthiest, so it'd be a good thing, you know, go out with them, shoot the ball, walk around the park while they play in the park. And so those are things that I'm hopeful that I will see happen.
Thank you, Mr. Keys. Before I start, do a little bit of housekeeping. We are canceling the first meeting in July, which is July 7th, as a test to see if we can do it 1 month in the summer. So far, it's not working too well. But anyway, our meeting on the 21st will be a 7:30 in the evening meeting. Having said that, we're having a study session on the 24th of June at 5:30 to get the stormwater story all given to us. And at the same time, That's why I mentioned it wasn't working too well. We had a sewer bond ordinance that has to be okayed, second reading has to be okayed in ample time for them to file all the paperwork with PNC. So we will do that at the 24th meeting. And I'm probably opening up a can of worms, but Mr. Mayor, if there's somebody else out there that needs something like Mr. Tushak needed, bring it on that night. We'll get it cleared up. Okay? I was coming in from Buffalo yesterday, and we're all cognizant of fireworks. I have a dog that just runs down in the basement and hides in under my desk as soon as she starts hearing noise. But you have these outfits, that's America. Buy one, get two free. There's a lot of big signs. Buy one, get two free. Something's wrong with the way we are. You know, Americans are the cleanest people in the world, Mr. Witherspoon. They don't want to carry that dirty water bottle. They're going to throw it on the ground, get rid of it. That's why cars are clean, because they throw the McDonald's package out the window. They don't think sometimes. And it's time for us to really pay more attention to everybody doing it. Maybe we have to shame them. I don't know. But I worked as a policeman at the Peninsula for 7 summers. And it wasn't as bad then as it is now. It really, people are taking advantage of it. And it's crazy because that Presque Isle, that's our beach. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. That being said, I'm done with that part. I will close with a little bit of trivia. I don't know if anybody knew this. For one thing, I'm a John Wayne fan. But I don't think too many people know how Wayne got his stage name. The director of one of his first B films back in the olden days didn't like the Morrison name. And he was a history buff. The John Wayne was actually named after our Anthony Wayne. I thought that's kind of cool, little trivia, but I thought it was pretty nice. Before I close, Mr. Betza, you're close to orange with your outfit, but I just wish that your Huskies and my Ramblers could have played for a 4th time before they went downstate.
I couldn't agree more.
It would have been a wonderful thing. And that's my end to you. You're up.
I have just 2 things. One, just an update. We will start negotiations with AFSCME, the union. We have 4 unions, and we typically do 1 contract per year. This year is AFSCME, and so that process is going to get going. And then the second thing is with regard to the Erie Station Square, I just wanted to let you know that I did receive a draft contract. I did have the opportunity to meet with Attorney Pignataro, as well as Chuck Zisk and Dave Mulvihill. We've worked out, I believe, all of the main details of an agreement, essentially to protect the city from any liability type issues. And so I would expect that we would have that document in final form probably tomorrow.
Super.
Excuse me. Mr. Betza, they said adopt the park, right? They don't own the park then? We still have the ownership of the park?
Well, I mean, adopt kind of it leads to kind of the idea of ownership. I mean, I think that may be a term that they've used. That's not referenced in the document. They're simply making improvements and donations to the park that would be installed and would become the property of the city of Erie. So there's no cost to the city for those improvements, and so if it's something that they're going to do, for example, one thing is a statue. And so let's just talk about the statue. If we like the idea of a statue being donated and erected in the city, they're willing to do it at no cost to the city. And so if we like that idea, I think that's a great thing. If we don't like it, then we can say no thanks. But all of the things that they're proposing to do that would be in park property would be improvements to the property, and they're willing to do it at no cost to the city. My concern is not whether or not it's good or bad for the city. That's up to the city personnel and to the property owners of what they're willing to donate. I'm just trying to make sure that there's no liability created for the city by having something put up. We need to make sure it's put up properly, that we approve it. And so we have the ability to approve any improvement, and also we don't pay for any of the improvements.
Ed, how many of these memorandums of understanding do we have with parks? Because we did have an Adopt a Park program. I mean, if you Google Erie City Parks, there's a bunch of stuff that comes up. I have no idea how many of those adoptions are still in existence, if they are forever, or if they were for a certain number of years. Like, say, Nate Levy Park is Nate Levy Erie J.C.'s. Was there a memorandum of understanding there? I'd also been told that it was difficult, if not impossible, to actually find a document about Leaf and Frontier Park. Would you be able to let us know how many parks have these public-private partnerships and how many of them are actually formal? I mean, again, I'm not trying to be I did have a concern, though, when Mr. Zafiris was talking about some kind of private security force. That's fine for the property around the park, but are there private security people going to be going onto park property? I don't like arrogance, and I don't like being told that we are being roadblocks when we ask questions. That's our job as city, at least I view that as my job as a city council person. I also have a concern about, I don't understand why these things aren't working together. We have the Erie Downtown Partnership, which got an $8,500 grant to do the Spaces with Dignity, and they said, well, that's not nearly enough money for what we want to do. So I wasn't being facetious. Where are these people who are having a drug crisis? Where are they being shooed off to? I mean, I think the sarcasm was, well, I'd be happy to take them to a private home, as if, yeah, Liz, I'm going to go take the drug addict over to your house. And that's not what I was suggesting. And I'm not trying to be a total bleeding heart, but I think this is a worry. If we have people who are ODing, and according to the person who spoke, these aren't the regular homeless people. These are other people with social issues. So anyhow, I have a question about that private security, because I think, is that in the memorandum of understanding? I guess we'll get it and we'll be able to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, but the insinuation that when we ask questions that we are somehow holding back progress really makes me mad.
I clarified that for you, Liz. I stuck up for it, and I told him you weren't doing
Thank
that.
you. I know you did.
I didn't get, I mean, in my interactions with them, I did not get any sense of arrogance. I did not get any sense of anger or frustration with any city official. I just simply got a request that they wanted to make improvements to the park. That's not my role to decide if they're good or bad improvements. That'll be the city's. But the agreement and all of the proposals were all sincere, as I took it. With regard to security, there's no indication of security in any agreement, but the reference to security that was made would only be eligible to be on private property.
Okay.
I cannot have a private security firm go onto public property and enforce any law. I do have the right to take people or to protect my own property. And I think, I don't know the whole frustration that they're experiencing, but there's no right necessarily for people to block private property. And at least what I understood is that that's what has been occurring. I have had discussions with some of the other business owners in the area asking for assistance for security reasons, because there are people, I don't know their situations, there are people in essence moving in on the private property and making it uncomfortable for people to walk in the front door of their office.
What about like I went to the park today, so there were 5 people there. It was about 1:15. One guy was by himself. I think there was one person with a bicycle and 2 people sitting near there, and I think there was one other person there. So are they going to be, I really do have a concern that it's somehow, hey, we're going to have these swings with the music, but hey, if you're a drug addict and you get on that swing, get the heck out of there. So you know, I credit Kathy Schaaf, who didn't have a chance to speak up tonight, because she has over and over again brought home the issue of people who are dealing with homelessness here. So
Liz.
I think we need to figure out what, he says it's not his concern. You know, whose concern is it? Is it our concern that we have people who are homeless, like just sitting in the park? And granted, I was not there at 5 o'clock in the morning to see any drug addicts. I just saw people who were just sitting there.
The concerns that at least were raised with me, were not directly about people being in the park.
Okay.
It's people being on private property and moving in and laying down, blocking access to buildings. That has been the complaint that has come to my office a couple of times in the past year, is that when people are reporting to work in the morning, they are being blocked by someone or something, and then they feel uncomfortable going past this barrier to get into their office space. And so I think, again, I think perhaps the discussion is better with the property owner, but my understanding is that part of the cause of this improvement attempt is to try to make it a nicer area and to deter people from moving in on private property.
But we will find out how many memorandums of understanding we have with the other adopters of parks.
Well, I will try. Okay. I have not been involved in an adopt-a-park in the past 3 years, which is the time period that I've been there. To the extent there are written memorandums that involve the solicitor's office, we would keep copies of that, and so I would be able to gather that. But I can't promise you that every time some private entity said we want to take care of a park in the past 50 years that there have been written memorandums to support.
And I know
them.
Ed's getting frustrated with me continuing to talk about this, but I'll tell you what, if I had been in charge of this, I would have figured out a way to celebrate Griswold manufacturing instead of making that like kind of shuttle that off to the side. And you know, with everybody who's vaccinated, we could have gone and seen if the metal of the Griswold frying pan would have attached to our heads like that woman testified in Ohio. Think of the attraction there.
Okay.
Mr. President. Oh, I forgot. We forgot the mayor. Sorry.
Yeah, we're not done yet. Mr. Bessa, you are finished?
I'm done.
Okay. And I don't have in front of me, he's not here tonight, so I think we go to the boss, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. One of the big things we're working on right now is the ARP funding, which we haven't received any yet. We're supposed to get half of our $76 million this year, so about $38 million, and then half a year from now. We have been spending a lot of time talking to people about how they'd like to see us use that money. My top priority is I want to help the people most affected by COVID-19, which tend to be people of color that live here. I think they contracted COVID-19 at 2 to 3 times the rate of white residents. And one of the things that's stated we've got hundreds of pages of documents from the federal government about it. One of the things that stands out to me is to help people most affected by COVID-19 to a higher standard of living, not just for a year or two, but for the rest of their lives and their children's lives. And that's the main way we want to use it. We're probably going to have way more than in terms of possible projects than the amount of money we're getting. But I believe this is a once in the city's lifetime, not a human lifetime, once in the city's lifetime opportunity to really raise Erie to a higher level. So we're going to do the best we can to make sure that happens. The naturalization ceremony at the federal courthouse was very moving today. There were 15 new U.S. citizens sworn in at that. We've talked a lot about Griswold and Station Square, Griswold Plaza, and we are very open to doing something with that, but we want to be actively involved in it. We want to get all the questions answered, make sure we're doing it right in a way that's going to last. One of the issues is how are the things being put in going to be maintained. I think they're asking the city to maintain it. We're not sure if we're capable of that, but we have the manpower to do it, the person power to do it. So we'll keep working on that. And Mel, I think 19th Street's actually Witherspoon Way, isn't it? We should refer to it that way, not as East 19th Street.
Tomorrow's press conference, we're going to talk about the June refugee, that June is Refugee and Immigration Month, as you guys have talked about already, and also we're going to talk about celebrating Juneteenth. And the other topic for tomorrow's press conference is the unveiling of gateways to growth for immigrants and refugees. So a lot of it's focused on immigrants and refugees tomorrow. Kathy, congratulations on getting that new fountain in Perry Square. I think that.
Well, thank you.
Well, that could be in by the end of this week, potentially. I know they're making good progress on it. I was at Garden Court neighborhood last night. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. I see some of you nodding. It's between 6th and 7th and Cherry and Poplar on the Erie's west side. There's nothing else like that in Erie. It's very unique, because in the middle of all that is kind of gardens and grass, and they gather down there. That's where their meeting was that I was at. They did raise some challenging issues with regard to their neighborhood. I can't discuss them publicly, but we've already started to deal with them through the police. Gannon pays the city $100,000 a year, just because they don't pay any tax. They give us something at least, and we received $100,000 this week. Want to let you know that. Last Saturday, I was over at 919 East 9th Street, which is just off the East Bayfront Highway on the east side of it. Pierre McCormick did a great job over there. He really improved that neighborhood, made it much safer, made it much better. And he had what he calls Cars and Coffee, which was a gathering of people in that transformed area to see antique cars, basically. And it was a great conversation. Very impressed with what Pierre accomplished over there. We had a meeting with the EDDC, John Persinger and his group this week as well. And they have 42 people that have signed up to rent apartments in downtown Erie once the construction is done across Perry Square there. And so we're looking forward to that. They also told us the food hall, which is going to be all local vendors, that's going to open in October or November most likely. That's a little later than they had originally planned, but you've probably noticed if you've driven by there or been near to it, they've had to do a lot more work than they had to do. They had to take down entire walls because they weren't sound, but they're still working and moving forward. He also plans on July 1st, that's a Thursday, to announce some additional market vendors that are going to be located there, and that's going to be from 4:30 to 7:30. It's kind of going to be kind of an event that they're going to put on. The last thing I'd just like to say to you is I have a new pen, and anyone who wants one can get one. I have a bunch of them with me. They've got my name on it, and then it says, "I'm committed to being open, honest, transparent, and accessible." And I'm giving these out, so people keep that in mind. And if I'm not doing that, I want you or anyone else to tell me, because that's the way I want to be as mayor. So thanks very much for the meeting.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
really
Mayor.
appreciate it.
Before we close here, I do want to make one statement for everybody here as far as the Airbnb. Before we pass an ordinance, we have to know what we're passing. I don't know, do we have a majority of council that wants to strike the owner-occupied part out of the Airbnb, or don't we? I need consensus for Mr. Besser, because he's going to present that ordinance to us in July.
Can we do an email or something?
Yeah, we'll respond to the clerk.
Okay, Lori will get the information then?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, just so we're clear, I mean, you're gonna vote whenever it comes, you're gonna vote however you want. And so we normally have it all pre-written, which makes it a whole lot smoother. It doesn't have to be. So for example, if the owner occupied, let's just take that, if that's in the ordinance and a majority does not vote for it, there could be a motion from the floor to
remove that.
Remove it and approve it without that provision.
That's what we were hoping for, to remove it before we got there.
Well, and I can have, I can certainly, I mean, we talked this morning, I can have a draft version for you for your consideration. You can have both of them. And if there's any other version you want, you can have that as well.
Another version could be grandfathering existing businesses.
that's the sticky wicket too.
I know, it is. I mean, there's nothing easy about it. I'm just saying, if there's an investor who has invested in the property for that main purpose, and it's already been a couple of years.
Yeah, I got a call from a guy that had 2 houses given to him by his grandma when she died and his uncle or aunt. And he's living outside of Erie now, but he's in violation of it if we do the owner occupied.
Yeah.
How do you
Essentially,
regulate it?
shut them out of business.
Yeah.
The answer to your question, Mr. Brett, is yes. Even though
Yeah.
I
was just.
showed some lack of love for your idea,
Yeah.
but yes, we could.
Nothing is boring, that's for sure. Can I say good night to everybody?
Say good night.
Good night, everybody. We're done.
Oh, no.
9:19 p.m. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Keys, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski.